I've seen a lot of this session. Maybe I'm the only one. But this is not an agreed-on bill. The Arkansas Association of Counties has never yet approached me on this bill. I have gone through intermediaries to the County Clerks Association. They have never come to me. But I learned in committee what their problems with the bill were and offered to fix them. They turned me down out of hand. I fixed them anyway, which is why we're a couple of days late. All this bill does is allows someone who wishes to vote on a paper ballot to be able to vote on a paper ballot. We have pared this down because they talked about expense, etc. We have pared this down to only in those counties that have a vote center. That leaves out 12 of our smaller counties. It hits 95% of the people, but so it wouldn't be a burden on them. Everybody that has a vote center has a printer already. That's part of that vote center. With a touch of a button, you can print the ballot for me or anybody else that's registered to vote, and it'll print the correct ballot. People are already trained how to do that because they already have the printer and they already do that. And the cost that we can see is paper and counting the ballots. And I think assuming that the machines that are being used in Garland County are what are being used statewide, and I don't know that to be true, but I have confidence in the system mainly because it ends up being a paper ballot that is held and can be recounted. But people have concerns. Citizens have concerns. Voters have concerns. And I think that those concerns should be honored. And I was reminded of my first election, and I shared this with the Judiciary Committee the other night, and I apologize for getting emotional, but this is the week that I lost my dad 2 years ago. And he called me into his office a month before the election and said, "Son, I know you're excited, but I don't want you to be disappointed. They cheat." And he told me how he had run for the Democrat committee, and somebody came in at noon. He had not gone to vote yet. Somebody came in at noon and told him that he didn't even have a lever by his name. And I said, "Dad, I know they used to do that." I had sat down with numerous candidates who told me their horror stories, but I said, we fixed all of that. And I believe that we had. Till I got to the polls on that election morning, and a relative who we had ascertained was in my district had gone into the voting machine, and there were 3 JP races on the machine, and she couldn't pull the lever by my name. My district had been locked out, although she was definitely in my district. We projected that we were going to get 75% of the vote in that precinct. We had to get 75% of the vote in that precinct for me to win. It wasn't an accident. So out of every 4 people who voted, I lost 3 votes and my opponent lost 1. She said when she couldn't pull the lever by my name, she told the officials outside the curtain booth she was in, "I can't vote for Alan Clark." And they said, "Well, then you're not supposed to be able to vote for Alan Clark." She said, "No, I am supposed to be able to vote for Alan Clark. We've checked, and he's running in my district. I should be able to vote for him." Well, they told her all kinds of things, including just pull the lever and come on out. And she said, "No, I know when I pull the lever, my vote is done, and I'm not coming out until I can vote for Alan Clark." Well, the line was out to the road, and 20 minutes later, they finally handed her a paper ballot for her to vote on, and she left. I get there, that's 7:30, I get there at 9, so it's fixed, right? No, the line's still out to the road, and 3 out of 4 voters that would have voted for me are not voting at all, to 1 for my opponent. And so we called the Election Commission, and we had them to come out, and they said, "There's nothing we can do." They didn't get there till 11:30. This continues to go on. There's nothing we can do. And I said, there's got to be something you can do. These people are supposed to be able to vote for me, and they can't vote. Nothing we can do. And then they said, my heart sank, because all of these people who had talked about the horrors that had happened in their own election had told me this thing. The election commissioner told me that tomorrow morning you can file a complaint and challenge the election. That wasn't true. I had to have 20 notarized complaints turned in at the close of the polls that day. And if I came in the next morning, they would tell me, it's too late, sorry. But they were the ones that were supposed to know the rules. Then I had no doubt it was on purpose. I spent hours in the school office. It was at a school where we were voting. Hours in the school office with attorneys, with the Republican Party, trying to get something done. What they did do is come in more than once and tell me that I had to leave or I would be arrested because I couldn't be in the poll. Turns out, I didn't know the law at that point. Turns out the law said that the one person who can be in the poll with no permission to be a poll watcher is the candidate himself. But they said, you don't want to have your picture in the paper tomorrow for being arrested because I refuse to leave. I said, I'm behind a closed door. Nobody even knows I'm here. And they said, you don't want to be in the paper tomorrow having been arrested. And I said, I don't care what happens tomorrow. The election is going to be decided today. And we stayed on the phone with the Republican Party. And finally, at 2:30 that afternoon, they closed that voting machine and began to allow people to vote on paper ballots. 2:30. I had my 20 complaints, more than that. I'm glad we had paper ballots, but I also learned a lesson that day that I know very well from the heart, and that's why I'm taking the time today to share it with you, is Dad said, watch it, and I was convinced we had it fixed. Guys, I'm convinced today we have it fixed. As many of you are convinced we have it fixed. But the people who don't think we have it fixed may be smarter than me. That's what I have learned. They may be smarter than me, and we're not asking for something big. We have worked with the county clerks every way we know to work with the county clerks. We've lessened the penalty. We've said one place. That means if you want to vote by paper ballot, you got to go to that one place. The machines are there. All it requires is extra paper. And besides the fact, I don't like the fact that any group, anytime, doesn't come to a senator and try to work with him. And so I didn't keep the bill the way it was. I changed it to make it the best law that we could. It's good law. I'd appreciate a good vote.
Questions for Senator Clark? Senator Hammer.
Thank you. Senator Clark, thank you for your presentation. My question is, the machine you were referencing to, how long ago was that?
92.
Okay, thank you.
Senator Chesterfield.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Had a similar incident, but I just asked them to do a provisional ballot, which was available at that time, which we still can do. My concern is, what will you do to make sure that the paper ballots are secure? Are you going to insist that they use security paper? Because that's not in your bill. Having come through a number of elections where people can copy the ballot and then do what they want. I need some assurance that if they have a paper ballot, that it's on secure paper and that no one can replicate it, but I don't see it in your bill. Speak to that, please.
Yes, Senator Chesterfield, the only reason we didn't address that is not to try to be the experts and get out into the weeds, to let it be addressed in rulemaking where the Secretary of State and others who make sure our elections are secure will make sure that they're secure. But that's a very good question.
Senator Dees and then Senator Stone.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Senator Clark. What I love about this bill is that it does give options for voters. I agree that I don't think we have a problem today, that our elections are secure, but I'm also in favor of making sure public feel that way. So that's why I like what you're doing. I do have questions, though, on talking with my county clerk and folks about the execution of this. There were some concerns around how this would apply to early voting versus just election day. and there were some concerns around the execution of this, of what it might do. And then a second question would be, you'd mentioned no cost, but through talking to folks on my side, it sounds like not all voting centers have these printers, and so there would be a cost, it sounds like, to get these printers. I just want some clarification there. That would make me feel better.
It's does your county clerks not have the printer?
What was told to me, they have a printer that is for absentee ballots.
It's the same printer.
But not all counties have that same printer, it sounds like.
We have not been contacted by any county who said they did not have the printer. And by the way, several county clerks now are either neutral on the bill or for the bill. The association still has not moved.
So as a follow-up, if I read it correctly, it would be the closest. It would be a voting center closest to the courthouse.
Closest to the courthouse.
Okay. And only on election day?
No, I believe it covers early voting also.
Okay.
So I wouldn't tell you wrong.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Thank you so much.
Senator Stone?
Yes, Senator Clark, I hate that you had that experience when you ran, I think you said for
Quorum Court.
Thank you. But what assurances did you have that they accurately counted your paper ballots after those were handed in?
You know, what assurance did we have that George Washington won? Because they were certainly paper ballots. There's always that question, Senator Stone, and there's always going to be a question because some people would go and point fingers at the Democrats back in that day. But I know my Democrat colleagues, and none of them would participate in that. None of them would take part in such a thing. And people are people. And the fact that we think that somehow we're better and that nobody's trying to do anything, it's just, Senator Bryant said it well, this gives some people peace of mind right now that their vote's being counted. I believe that just as I trust with the current machines, I trust that the Secretary of State and the local election commissions will be sure that the ballots are handled properly and counted properly. That's not the way I'll vote. I would rather vote the other way. But that is a good question. But it's all where we've had proper people in place. It's always been handled correctly.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Senator Bryant, you're recognized.
Just for some clarity, the printer, as far as I'm aware of, has to stay with the county clerk or the county judge or elections commission, wherever that main area is, to print those absentees because it comes through by mail, and it can't ever leave that. So you've got to have one at a base location to handle absentees. They would have to purchase another to remain at the vote center. Do you agree?
If they would, Senator Bryant, they've never said so to me. Again, I cannot say this loud enough. Any of these, I have handled every objection they gave us, and then they have more. But had they just sat down with me, I would have handled everything that they had, and we would have, or I'd have not run the bill. And so I would ask you, again, if these are problems, I will still work on it, even though we're at the last minute and it becomes next to impossible. I want our elections to be right. And I'm not trying to cost anybody any money, but I want to take care of our voters. And I would ask you, I have always done that. I have always worked with people, always sat down. It is them who comes back at the last second without telling me anything and says, here's some other problems. And we would have been glad to hear these problems before, if they exist. You have to excuse my skepticism.
Any other questions for Senator Clark? Anyone wish to speak against? Senator Hammer, you're recognized to speak against.
I want to make a few points of clarification, if you will. First of all, when we started long before the session ever began, going back into last summer, there was a group, we put together 25 bills that aligned with the Heritage Report. And of those 25, 24, hopefully by today or tomorrow, will be out. And those bills were taken and developed as a result of taking the Heritage Foundation and saying, what do we have to do to clear what were your objections? So we worked through that process, and y'all may remember a bill called Senate Bill 250. Senate Bill 250 had the support of the Heritage Foundation. They got in behind it. They said this was a good bill. This is what they got in and supported. With regards to, I'm going to give you what was given to me, that out of 28 counties who responded, only 7 had a printer. These workstations are about 12,000 each. You would need a backup. You would need specialized trained workers. Most importantly, only having pre-printed ballots at one vote center could create mass confusion. So what I'm saying is this. The bills that we worked on that started way before last session that aligned with what the Heritage Foundation said we needed to do in order to clear what kept us from being number one at the time, that this bill is not one of those bills. And I want to make that clear, that it's not one of those bills. And so what I would ask is you not vote for this. Senate Bill 250 addressed a lot of that issue, and so I'm asking you not to vote for it. Senator Dees. Madam Chair.
Question for Senator Hammer. Senator Dees, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Governor. Senator Hammer, I just, for clarity, how would these two bills work together? So with 250 having passed, and with this bill on the table here, what I'm remembering about 250 was a timeline we set for counting bills. Would these conflict at all? Would they mesh well? Can you speak at all to that?
Not really. I don't know that they would mesh well, number one. Number two, I'm not sure that with Senate Bill 250 having gone through, the necessity of this bill. The other thing, and thank you for bringing that up because it just dawned on me, and I had not had that written down in my notes. There are quorum courts that are voting against the idea that this bill would take us in the direction of, with Senate Bill 250 having already been voted through. They feel, the ones that have spoken to me, feel that that is adequate for the needs. The other thing I'd like to point out, and thank you for bringing it up, because I asked Senator Clark about the machine that he used. That was 20 years ago. And really, the contention is around the machines. Do people trust the machines or not? I can't speak for other states what have happened, but I can speak that in this state, for all the audits that have been conducted on those machines, it's 100% accuracy so far. So you have to factor that into consideration. Also, one of the other bills that we ran allowed for up to 15 counties to be checked, and we're already at 100% success rate. And all the arguments I think we've well debated over Senate Bill 250. So really probably boils down to the question, what's the necessity of this bill given everything else that we have done? Thank you.
Anyone wish to speak for or against? Senator Clark, you're free to close.
Thank you, Governor. I appreciate all the work that Senator Hammer has done and others have done on election security. The more that we do, the better. The simple answer to the need for the bill is people, especially, it wasn't that it wasn't true before COVID, but since COVID, people are really tired of government and government officials telling them we know better. And there's not like there's nothing happened that caused them to have a concern in this country. And the young man who wrote this bill has been working as attorney for the Wisconsin legislature to help fix the problems up there, and as aware of problems that we weren't aware of. So again, for more than one reason, I would ask for a good vote. It allows people to have a peace of mind that they believe that their vote is being counted and counted correctly. And I think this is a problem that probably goes away in 4 to 6 years, but it's a problem right now, and it's not much to ask. I'd appreciate a good vote.
Senator Clark is closed. Any objections? Rolling the vote. Objection noted. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Boyd.
No.
Bryant, Caldwell, Chesterfield, Clark, Crowell, Davis, Dees, Dismang, Dotson, English, Flippo, Flowers, Gilmore, Hammer, Hester, Hickey, Hill, Irvin, Blake Johnson, Mark Johnson, King, Ledding, Love, McKee, Murdoch, Payton, Penzo, Petty, Rice, Stone, Stubblefield, Sullivan, Tucker, Wallace.
Again, on this side, Senator Bryant, yes. Senator Dees, yes. Senator Dodson, yes. Anyone? Crowell, present. Anyone else on this side? This side? Dismang, present. Petty, present. Murdoch, present. Anyone else? Please cast up the ballot. By a vote of 13 yea, 13 nay, 4 not voting, and 4 present, SB 435 fails.